of peace through global spiritual solidarity.
Worldwide, UPF activities are building bridges for peace. The Interfaith Peace Movement has become a force to bind diverse faiths together. This movement, in which leaders with varied beliefs and traditions overcome their differences to achieve harmony, demonstrates that the essence of peace lies in cultivating closeness of heart. Furthermore, we support women and young people in stepping forth as key figures for peace. Educational and leadership development programs that cultivate global citizenship awareness are establishing a foundation for the new generation to achieve sustainable peace in our world. The Universal Peace Federation is forming focused alliances for world peace, leading the creation of peace solutions through cooperation. This includes the International Summit Council for Peace, where former and current heads of state gather to discuss policies and strategies to resolve crises currently facing the global village. The International Association of Parliamentarians for Peace brings together parliamentary leaders from many countries, providing a forum for the discussion of conflict resolution and establishing a legal foundation for sustainable development and peace. The Interreligious Association for Peace and Development is leading interfaith dialogue to achieve harmony among all cultures, transcending theology and traditions. The International Association of First Ladies for Peace empowers women leaders to foster harmony in their families and communities. While the International Media Association for Peace seeks to contribute its collective wisdom through promoting fair and responsible reporting that will alleviate conflict and foster understanding. The International Association for Peace and Economic Development is focusing on creating a sustainable economic model where economic prosperity and social responsibility coexist. The International Association of Academicians for Peace applies expertise and scholarship to research pathways to peace and proposing practical solutions. UPF will be a new opportunity to make progress toward the peaceful unification of the Korean Peninsula and therefore world peace. Participants will be involved in discussion of practical alternatives and solutions to resolve global crises, including climate change, international conflicts and poverty, based on interreligious, international, and interracial solidarity. Additionally, world leaders are coming together through the World Summit, a global platform where they share a vision of peace and prosperity, grounded in the core values of interdependence, mutual prosperity, universally shared values. They are working to resolve international conflicts, seek sustainable peace, and continue to call for concrete action and meaningful change, both towards peace on the Korean Peninsula and global harmony. The destiny of the Korean Peninsula is inseparably connected to the destiny of our global village. At this point in time, when 80 years since liberation has led to 80 years of division, the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula is an important key to world peace.
이 민족이 세계 모든 나라들이 하늘을 부모로 모시는 자리에서만이 진정한 세계 평화, 자유, 평등, 평화, 통일의 행복한 하늘 부모님을 중심한 인류 한 가족의 세계가 이루어질 수 있습니다.
It is often said that peace is not just the absence of war. A peaceful world is one where justice, love, and mutual respect coexist. The Universal Peace Federation will continue its efforts to build a world of hope for future generations with the participation of all global citizens. Join us now. The Universal Peace Federation invites you to participate in creating a better world.
We had an amazing meeting. I think it was like November 5th or November 4th. We had an amazing time, and a number of ambassadors for peace. They received something from Father and Mother Moon on the stage, etc. So we have this legacy, and this is something we're going to be building on. And today we're very honored to have Rev Dr David Hanna with us to refresh the principles of peace. In many ways, I think when people hear them,
Recording in
they
progress.
feel like it's something within them. It's natural. It's common sense. So David has a wonderful way of explaining. David attended the Unification Theological Seminary, which is in upstate New York, very much an interfaith-oriented seminary. Has a long history of working with interfaith groups, of working to present these principles in different ways so that people can understand them very, very well. And constantly, I find he's improving and improving every time based on his experience and thinking about these principles very deeply. So we're very honored to have David here this morning. Please welcome up with a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. Lovely to see you. Thank you for coming, kind of giving up what you're normally doing on a Saturday. I don't know what form that takes for you, or maybe you're attending seminars and conferences on a regular basis, right? So, yes, that was more than adequately introduced through the video and also through Robin Marsh's kind words. I'll try to live up to that in some way. I think we always have audiences that contain people who are fairly new to the Universal Peace Federation, which is wonderful. We love to see that. And also some who have been supporting for many years, and I see some of those in the audience too. So I try to include everybody if I can, but I think Robin introduced something interesting there. When you have words which they have some content of spiritual value, you can always hear them again and again. Have you noticed that? I mean, this is what the world's religious traditions do. You know, you have a holy book, and you may go to that and you can reread, and you always gain something. So it's entering a different part of the brain, not just the kind of logical thinking part of the brain, but something deeper in one's spirit, actually. I don't say I can do that, but in the sense I'm just a messenger. I'm passing on some words that come from our founders, and they feel very deeply that these came to them from a higher source and from their spiritual journey and prayer. And therefore, I think they do have that kind of quality to them. So but also I learned a new word from, in this context, from Robin Marsh there, refreshing, right? We're here to refresh these ideas. So this is our seminar for today. I'll be giving 2 of these talks, and we'll have a guest speaker after that before Robin Marsh concludes. So these first ideas, really I'm entitling Universal Values as a Foundation for World Peace. And as a little more context, I show you this picture this morning. Right? So right now, on an average day, so we can say today, around 385,000 babies will be born. That's just today. That's staggering, isn't it? Right? That's across every nation, culture, and faith. And the future for these babies born today is to inherit a world which, in many ways, is a very fragile home. It needs taking care of. And it's our responsibility to think, what are we passing on? What are we bequeathing to these children? Not only in terms of the environment, and we'll talk about that, but what is it in terms of the way that we live together and work together as one human family that we're passing on to future generations? So this is, what the future looks like, and a thought which somehow always, I don't say cheers me up, but it certainly makes me think, is the fact that at least within 100 years, this world will have a completely different set of people, right? Amongst the millions, billions that we have, 8 or 9 billion, then there will be more in 100 years probably, but they will be different people, a whole different set of people. And when you think about that, you realize, well, then what we're passing on is so crucial. What we're doing in terms of education is so crucial, because these young minds have to be attracted by something and fulfilled by something, and then find their own way to contribute to such a world as we like to envision. Very conscious and very aware that things are not right and things are not as they should be. I'm sure like yourselves, you meet young people who, even though married, they're not sure whether they want to bring children into this world. Have you come across such people? And that's, if you think about that, that's very tragic. It's very heartbreaking, actually, that they should be thinking that way or forced to think that way, because they are just so unsure about what kind of future is going to be there. However, I'm here to share the ideas of Father and Mother Moon, Reverend Myung Moon and Dr. Hakjahan Moon. I have to say, particularly thinking of Mother Moon at the moment, she is being held without any charge in some detention center in South Korea. There's a kind of slight, I have to be careful with my language, but there's a little bit of opposition going on to a lot of religious leaders, and she's included in that. So for an 83-year-old grandmother, it's very, in my opinion, a very unfair treatment. And if you want to find out more about that, or join the kind of voices that are expressing their concern, then you're welcome to do that. Then Father and Mother Moon have a wonderful vision. It's captured there in the video, which most of you could see. This world without any of the barriers that have been around for such a long time. We almost got used to them, of religion, race, culture, this kind of thing, and nationality. Here's Father Moon speaking to a very diverse religious audience at the Assembly of the World's Religions. It goes back to 1985. And he said there, religions should be concerned with God's will for world salvation, more than with the salvation or benefit of the individual or the welfare of their own denomination. As far as I know, God is not sectarian. He's not obsessed with minor details of doctrine. We should quickly liberate ourselves from theological conflict, which results from blind attachments to doctrines and rituals, and instead focus on living communication with God. He's speaking, as always, from experience. This is his experience. And growing up in Korea, which has a very mixed religious background and history, he knows these cultures and he knows these backgrounds, as well as knowing the kind of atheistic system of communism, which he suffered under through his prison experiences. And then he adds, in God's parental heart and his great love, there's no discrimination based on color or nationality. There are no barriers between countries or cultural traditions, between East and West or North and South. Through interreligious dialogue and harmony, we should realize one ideal world of peace. Now, it was actually 85 to at least 20 years later that he founded the Universal Peace Federation. But it shows the consistency in his thought, right? And his lifelong ambition to see this kind of world realized where there's no discrimination based on color or nationality. So this is an approach which from first principles recognizes the work of the one God in the various genuine religious traditions which are there. I know quite a few things pass under the name of religion, which we might not want to include, but genuinely these lasting world traditions all have significant contribution to make and have made such contributions for their time, for their culture, for their area of the world in which they flourished and continue to flourish. So the goal is to have these work together and create one human family loved by God, whatever name we choose to call God by. I'm using the very English word there, right? So, but you could use any of these other words to describe that creator or sustainer or bringer of life and death into the world. So this is the one God, and there are different paths and different avenues, like different routes up to one mountain. But hopefully, when we all get to the top of that mountain and we look across, we see just one beautiful world that we can share in. And in a sense, it won't matter so much how we got there, right? We're just enjoying that experience, what should be a natural experience, to live together without these artificial barriers or sources of friction or even violence and hatred. This is not, doesn't your gut feeling tell you, this is not what human beings are about. We're about something so much greater and so much better than that. And therefore, we pursue this kind of line. It's no accident in a way. In the Universal Peace Federation, then, we are promoting a world which, in a way, is characterized by certain fundamental principles. We can say, to boil it down to three, the principle of interdependence. We all need each other, and that ultimate harmony requires everybody's cooperation. Mutual prosperity coming out of that so that nobody is left behind and we can take care of every soul, and this is part of our work for the future. And also universal values that unite us, especially values that are centered on an awareness of God. But in UPF, we don't make any insistence on that at all. It's a non-confessional organization. We don't ask about anybody's faith or have them adhere to any such principles to be a member and to work with UPF. That's one of its strengths, actually. But naturally, it brings together people of conscience, people of, I would say, good heart, right? But then I'm very biased, right? So, but it's very interesting who comes and works with UPF. There's no great checks going on your background. Am I right? Right? Even people are being recognized and appointed as ambassadors for peace, which is a very, high honor in a way. But we don't go into those kind of aspects of a person's background other than, what have they been doing in their community, in their society? How have they been contributing something of value in their approach to life and the work which they do? And let's recognize that, because these are often unsung heroes in our community, and we'd like to have them recognized and also have their support, that we can be this kind of loose network of like-minded and good-hearted people that together can be a powerful resource for goodness in the world. And it's more important than you think. That's my conclusion after my years of working with this. So my question today is also to go into a little more the religious thinking of the founders and introduce that to you, because that underpins so much of the work. As I say, it's not kind of necessary to even agree with that, but the point is to give you an understanding of it and hopefully take away something of value when you understand the depth of that thinking. So we can ask the question, does religion have a contribution to make? Many people, even with prominent positions in public life, would say no, they dismiss that. But we would say, let's rethink this. Let's reevaluate the contribution of, as I say, genuine world religions, people who are teaching and encouraging people to follow a genuine religious path, whatever that may be. They have certain things in common, and this is like the universal values which are starting to be articulated here. True religious practice, it seeks to restore peace and promote certain things: humility in front of God, respect to parents, fidelity in marriage, loyalty as a virtue and public service. These kind of things are very commonly encouraged and talked about. Personal discipline is certainly there, isn't it? And encouraging people to think of making certain sacrifices for a greater good and to control one's physical desires, bring those things under one's control and self-discipline, including restraint and patience and forgiveness in relationships. Also loving others as you should love yourself in a good way, and loving your neighbor, your fellow human being, and even having love for your enemies, or those people who take a stand against you for whatever reason. And this religious life then is very helpful and corrective and educative and has many benefits for people who take it seriously. And that's why, personally, I love to be amongst people of faith. I'm certainly never bored, and I'm always very comfortable and feel very free in that environment. But I should say, and just a little word here, UPF really respects and gives the same kind of welcome to people who maybe don't have any particular religious belief, but they are conscientious people who are peace-loving and seeking peace and anxious to likewise work together. Very wonderful way of including such people. So that's very much part of our approach and philosophy. I do like to include, as you know, some interfaith quotes or faith quotes from quotations from different religious sources. Here's one from the Holy Quran. It says there, prayer restrains one from shameful and unjust deeds. That's part of that self-discipline idea and the kind of regulation which comes through engaging in this kind of practice. And remembrance of God is the greatest thing in life without doubt. In Father Moon's thinking, everything starts with God as the purposeful mind and heart behind the world that we see and the world that we experience and behind life itself. So there's this creative, purposeful mind and heart of goodness and of love. And God has certain characteristics. Internal character, that's something very deep, a personality and certain aspects of character that we inherit as part of God's creation. And also some external presence in the universe, which is in the form of energy and the energy of life itself, which otherwise really can't be explained. Where does this thing called life come from? There's a whole debate there, right? But science hasn't found the answer yet. There's something there, and it wants to grow and develop and improve and is following certain very constructive and organizing principles. So where are those coming from? This is a very valid question and something which is, of course, under debate, but there's quite a revival going on taking the view of God's existence now more seriously, but maybe redefining our understanding of what we mean by God and developing that within the scientific language. And Father Moon's kind of pioneering work in this area, also through his revelation, is part of that and also opens the way for a worldview which can synthesize and harmonize the religious and the scientific worldviews. That's very significant, actually, more than I can go into today, other than say, yes, the internal nature or character of God is the origin of every internal character of things that we see around us. And also, the external form of everything that we see around us comes also from that origin or from that same creator. So it's not a case under this philosophy of spirit is good and material is bad. There have been people who saw the world this way, but both are good, both are necessary. Both, come from the same origin, but they have to have the right order of priorities in life and the right balance and harmony between the two. Also, the nature of God is both masculine and feminine, and therefore the origin of all things that we see to which we attribute masculine nature in the world, and everything that we see to which we attribute feminine nature or recognize feminine nature. This comes from the same creator. So the nature of God in this way is, yes, there's an internal character which includes, like our most internal faculties, intellect, emotion, will, but also there are concepts and laws which are at work in the universe, and they come from somewhere. And they are a certain way and not another way, because of the nature of this origin and the nature of the being that we call God. And then there's also God as the source of kind of original energy in the world. But that's not all. Father Moon's understanding was deeper than that. Inside God is this something called, can you remember, anybody? It's called heart in this, use of the English word, right? So it's using a standard English word, but now in a slightly developed or different way to translate from a Korean word, which I'm told is untranslatable, which doesn't help, does it? My wife is Korean, and that's what she tells me, right? Because it contains so much more than any one English word. Well, what is this thing called heart? It's something that's even deeper than love itself. Heart is the impulse to experience joy through giving and receiving love. Can you imagine that? It's putting a word, maybe it's something that you kind of sense anyway, but it's putting a word to it. It's the impulse, the desire, that kind of motive or force within somebody to, yes, I want to experience the joy that comes through giving and receiving genuine love, what we come to define, and I'll define later, true love, right? And that joy is something that I'm seeking, and the heart is kicking off that kind of process. It's a creative process, actually, and it's the source of motivation for creating. In human beings, we have that kind of heart to do something, to make something. In the end, is to bring, or should be, to bring someone else some joy through that. I can give it to them, this thing which I've created, this meal that I made, this helpful discussion or solution to their problems. Whatever it is that I'm kind of, offering is there to experience more joy in relationship. And therefore, it comes down as the source of meaning, not only for us, but it comes from the Creator. So this is very, very deep within God himself and herself. It's the source of meaning, and it becomes then the core of human nature as well. So that's an introduction to heart. You can think about that and maybe, pray or meditate about that. To just give it some thought. What is this? Can I recognize in myself this aspect of heart? And then we see this other kind of set of paired characteristics that we call complementary pairs. There's that of masculinity and femininity. And we see it displayed many different ways, in different forms, in the world around us. Sometimes it's in the artistic world, right? Because I'm always amused how, if you go to the ballet or you watch a ballet and you observe the audience, when the ballerina comes on, the star dancer, right? And she does her solo, everybody applauds, right? They're very, very happy with that one. And when the man comes on and he does his very dynamic, slightly different characteristic there, right, to this masculine dance. It's leaping around and it's very impressive and everybody applauds. But when do people applaud the most? It's when they're both together, the man and the woman, because there's a complementarity, and the man kind of almost unseen can lift the woman up and almost make her fly across the stage. And, everybody says, oh, look, she's flying, this is amazing, right? Of course, she's not, but it's the way that they work together. In other words, two things that are very developed and exceptional in their own right come together and create something which is greater, as we say, than the sum of the parts. It's not just 1 + 1, it's like 1 + 1 makes 3, right? It's this kind of beautiful expression. And that's the kind of origin of this dynamism and characteristic of the interaction between male and female. We see male and female in the animal kingdom, we see it in the plant kingdom. We see it even on a more fundamental level in positive and negative charge. So in the workings and the crash of electricity, like lightning, you see the kind of plus and minus, masculine and feminine, on a rudimentary level, working together to create great energy and lots of sparks. That's why love between husband and wife is sometimes referred to as a fire or a spark or something like that, right? Because it has that kind of quality to it, and it should never be old or boring or kind of, it's always fresh and new. My little phrase is, at least I think I came up with it, is true love always surprises. That's right. That means, like even, myself after many years of marriage, my wife will do something for me unexpectedly. And I think, oh, you did that for me? Oh, I'm so moved. Thank you. I never expected that, right? And so it always has that element to it. And it can continue doing that no matter how many, many years you've been in that relationship. There's no restriction. You can always come up with something new and surprising in the realm of true love, which of course is, now we know, motivated by heart, right? Is to experience that kind of joy. And boy, it's worthwhile, right? You really get something mutual out of that. I'm including here just a little look at Oriental philosophy, because this underpins Father and Mother Moon's thinking, actually. They come from that part of the world and had kind of free and natural access to that. Whereas, in the more Christianized Western European countries, we inherited more of Greek philosophy to underpin our intellectual structure of Christian thinking, which influenced our culture hugely, whether we're Christian or not. It hugely influenced our culture. But in the Orient, you have what are often referred to as yang and yin. Often we say yin and yang in English for some reason. But yin is the feminine equivalent and yang is the masculine equivalent. So if we think of masculinity and femininity, it's yang and yin. But within that, it's not just a thing to do with sexuality or with just male and female. It's much deeper than that. It's the fact that everything in the universe is existing in kind of complementary relationships. So if you talk about right hand, you're automatically talking about left hand, right? If you talk about up, you automatically talk about down. They come together, don't they? You can't avoid talking about both if you mention one. Or rough, you say this surface is very rough, you're already thinking about smooth, right? Wouldn't it be nice if it was smooth, right? So already these things come in pairs, and if you look into the way that the kind of more Taoist philosophy looks, it says, the yang element is activity and dynamism. But we don't want that all the time. We also need receptivity and passivity. They complement each other. And also you have brightness and clarity, which they would say is more of a yang element, and then you have darkness and mystery, which is more of a yin element. It doesn't mean that all women are dark and mysterious. I mean, us men may think so, but it's not putting everything in boxes, right? It's just saying, and these are kind of interchangeable. They're not fixed in the way that we might, first of all, think. So rigidity and structure is more of a yang element, and then fluidity and adaptability. That's the yin element. And leadership and initiative would be a yang element that maybe a very positive-minded woman leader can have great, copious amounts of, right? Leadership ability and initiative. But the yin element would be nurturance and preservation. So you can also see, yes, there's some way in which, in the broad scheme of things, certain things are more masculine, I can recognize that, and certain things are more feminine by nature, but it's not a value judgment anywhere in that. It's not that one is good and one is bad. Actually, both of these kind of complementary pairs are necessary, and they complete the whole, like our little description of the ballet dancers, right? This is the potential for life. If we maximize this and are aware of this, it can be very wonderful. Our religious texts that I referred to, do they support this idea? Well, you have, under the so-called pair system principle in the Judeo-Christian tradition, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. It's talking about him up to now, but then it says, male and female, he created them. So this is very early to be kind of putting those out there on the same level, male and female. He created them coming from God. And here in the Holy Quran, I love this verse from the 36th surah, verse 36 as well. Exalted is he who created all pairs, from what the earth grows and from themselves, and from that which they do not know, which I looked up quite a number of translations to kind of understand that more myself, right? But it seems the consensus is that that is implying that there's this pair principle, like between male and female, which is there in everything, even the parts of the created world which we don't know about yet. And certainly at the time it was written, there was quite a lot that was not known about. But it's proved to be the case. If you go into the kind of molecular level, you see there's the same pair principle working. Electron going around a nucleus. You see this kind of thing. You see that in the level of charge, cation and anion. You see it on the subatomic level as well. When anything is split into its component parts, it's like there are paired relationships which then work together to create the higher level of existence. So God's energy is in everything and working in everything. And when things are created in the world around us, including ourselves, we're in this kind of subject-object, masculine, feminine, internal, external relationship. We are mirroring that or showing evidence of those same principles at work, and subject-object pairs want to relate together. Again, like our dancers, they're a useful little illustration. So this energy of God in everything moves all these kind of paired relationships to form a common base and to unite together. Why are they uniting? Because it's to create something greater. You create something greater when you're in that united relationship. It's actually taking things to the next level, if you like. And that's the kind of direction and the impulse behind life itself. As a result, any being that exists in an interdependent way, not just independent of anything else. It's in relation to others, and it's created to exist through reciprocal relationships. So this whole philosophy or theology of Father and Mother Moon is very much related to relationships and founded on relationships. I would call it a relational theology or philosophy. So subject is the one who's initiating, object is the one who's responding in return. And that is a kind of initiating the relationship, which then continues and produces a very virtuous circle. We can look at it as the relationship between, say, the mind should be subject in the individual, and the body should be the object. The mind is directing the body what to do, right? It shouldn't be the other way around, right? Although sometimes we hear people say, oh, don't even talk to me till I've had my first cup of coffee or something like that, right? Right? No, if that's the way your body is dominating your mind, right? I need to talk to you, right? So, we have to work this out. And actually, you can say, because religion is a restorative vehicle, life in religion is largely life to have the body obey the mind. It's to have that put back into the right order. Do you see that? That's it, universal, actually. So you have also a speaker. Somebody who's speaking is a subjective action. The objective, responding, is listening. So if somebody's speaking, what should you be doing? Wonderful, right? I know I'm speaking a lot, so I'm at an advantage here, right? But, in the break time, you have something important to say, some observation. Come to me, you talk to me, I will definitely listen to you, right? So this is where we kind of interchange. So subject and object are not fixed. But have you ever had those conversations where you're speaking to somebody and just after a little while you start to think, are they listening? Are they listening to what I'm saying? I don't seem, because they'll be carrying on talking from wherever they left off, right? And they haven't taken on board anything that you said. They just want to say what they want to say. And you feel at the end, a little bit deflated. Your energy goes away because you're not going to get anywhere, right? So, and yet you can have such a constructive conversation whereby, you pick up something that somebody says and you were about to say something else, but now you think, oh no, well that's interesting. Yeah, you kind of develop your thought a little bit. So you say, you mean a little bit more like this? And yeah, that was something new. You had a new thought based on what the other person said, and you carry on in this very productive way. And in the end, you come up maybe with a plan together, a plan of action, and you think, well, who came up with that idea, right? It kind of came out of the interaction that you had together. So there can be good conversations and there can be fruitless conversations. So you can already think in terms of the broader peacemaking efforts and goals of UPF, there's something in this. Although I'm talking on a very foundational level of basic principles, maybe this can become useful in the future. Are you with me? Right? So maybe through the day we'll get more illustration of that. So In a relationship of husband and wife, it might be that the husband, in certain areas, or initiating a conversation, is the subject and the wife is object, but that's dynamic by its very nature. So sometimes then the wife is subject and the husband should listen. Wives, do your husbands always listen when you are talking? They should do, right? They should do, right? Very important, right? Because that also helps you to be a better subject. It's like the person who can follow very well can become a good leader, actually. The person who, from day one, they think, oh, I should be the leader. They're probably not going to be a very good leader, to be honest, right? Right? They're not listening to anybody else. Anyway, so, through this give and receive action, very fundamental, all the forces are being developed for something to exist, to multiply and develop, and to get involved in some positive action. So we see that in nature, all pairs, they relate together this way, and they do so centering on a common purpose that they have. All these pairs that we identified, they share this common purpose. They may not think of it as God, or don't need to do that. It's natural law has brought them together because they are fulfilling some purpose together and they have it in common. And on that basis, they can create something greater. So all these relationships have the potential to produce value. And value means that's in terms of love, truth, beauty, goodness, something which is really worthwhile. So under this thinking, we can say, well, God also needs an object to love. God is a God with heart at the very center, and human beings created in that image also have this aspect of heart, and that should underpin everything we do and create, and our intellect, emotion, and will should be driven by that, actually. So we receive love in this way, and we should respond. We respond, and the response to love in this understanding is actually beauty. It appears beautiful to the subject. And that then is not physical beauty, but such qualities as we see passed on in the world's religious traditions. Stories and instructions about humility and honesty and trustworthiness and faithfulness and loyalty and filial piety is something more from the Oriental tradition or emphasized there. So God also needs an object to love. In other words, God is not experiencing joy without having created a world with which he can have this dynamic relationship. So it's the reason behind creating. Wow, that's getting a little... Is that too deep for a Saturday morning? Is that right? But think about it. This is a very fascinating way of looking at things. Relationship, you look at everything in terms of relationship, then things start to make sense that maybe before were just an unanswered question. So this is very beautiful. So there's a creative process here. And it produces this kind of system whereby there's God, or there's this origin, we can say, and it produces 6 two-way relationships, which I've identified with these lines, so they're not so clear on this color scheme. But each relationship is obviously two-way. So God and the subject, God and the object, each of those is two-way. And then God and the new creation is two-way. Subject and object is two-way relationships. So 6 two-way relationships exist amongst these 4 positions or 4 units. And then centering on a common purpose, the subject and object unite to produce what? A new creation on a higher level. That's their purpose. And so something comes into the world. And we see this on the individual, when mind and body work together well, which is largely the process we're going through when we're growing up, from birth until we become an adult. We're getting that mind and body to work together in the proper way, centered on the kind of morality, ethics, the virtues and the values which are important and which are inherited and which we receive from our parents and other places. And we're creating out of ourselves a really a person of integrity, a person of good heart and a mature individual. And that is like a new creation coming into being. It's a very beautiful thing. This we call individual peace in the universal principles of UPF. Mind and body working together well, centering on higher values or a higher purpose, or if you're comfortable with the word God, you can use that as a kind of shorthand for those things. And this individual peace comes about when mind and body are united in a relationship, and it produces integrity where the words are matching the deeds, and a person can grow in character and maturity of heart this way. And also, through our process of growth, we're developing spiritual sensitivity to God and the spiritual realm, that we can ourselves become a dwelling place of God, a temple of God is sometimes the language is used in religious circles. And then we are able to give and receive true, genuine, altruistic love. Wow. The result is, we can work together to build a peaceful, ideal world. These are just kind of 3 examples of such individuals that we feel are good examples, but they're not perfect, none of those. But becoming a responsible individual with integrity is our first kind of blessing. That opportunity is a blessing, and it's like making the most of life as an individual, developing a heart of love towards others. The second kind of lasting foundation for peace and happiness is to create peace in society through families. And families are created when husband and wife come together. And again, centering on a common purpose, a higher purpose and higher values. Maybe it's their shared faith, which is a very good basis for that unity. They can talk about deep things automatically. And it doesn't mean without that faith you can't do that. Of course, it doesn't mean that. But it's a natural basis and a lead-in, a preparation for this aspect of marriage and making a family. And then, children can be born as the new creation coming out of this beautiful relationship, which is a relationship on a spiritual, psychological, emotional, physical, sexual, every aspect of what it is to be a human being is coming together to bring new life into the world. How wonderful! And this creates peace in society. If we look at the family like this as a building block, a basic unit to create a harmonious society. So here we are talking into very ideal terms, I know, and I should have maybe explained that earlier. But yes, this is putting forward some basic ideals, some values which we can unite with, whatever our religious tradition. And this is the time, I think, to reevaluate the importance of the family. And UPF is saying, actually, it's very essential if you want to talk about world peace. You have to include this dimension, just as you have to include then the individual and find peace in the individual. So within this unit, this basic unit, true love can work. True love meaning what? Well, Father Moon probably talked more about love than any other human being. That's my guess, because I've read so many of his speeches and words and related to this topic, and often he would talk at length on this topic. True, genuine love. And a summary of his words would be something along the lines of a deep and selfless love. True, genuine love is a deep and selfless love that seeks the well-being and happiness of others above oneself. That's the love we're talking about. and that is seen as a divine and transformative force that has the power to heal relationships, communities, and the world at large. Wow, how beautiful. Another kind of shorthand way, it comes from American author Greg Bear, is true genuine love is unconditionally caring about the happiness of another person. Or from psychologist Scott Peck, if you have come across the book, The Road Less Traveled, the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. So this is true love as we're defining it, not some kind of Disney-fied romantic love, right? True love, genuine love, real love. You know, we have maybe to understand what we're talking about. This altruistic love, and also we could say it's most characterized by a mother's love, genuine parental love that really is living for the sake of that new life and for sake of that other, that child in this case. It's totally for that, and no sense of self involved. So where do we learn such love to exercise in all our relationships, right? Because all relationships should be characterized by true love. We learn first from our parents, who are really our first teachers. And in this sense, the family, we can say, is the school of love. It's nurturing heart, this characteristic we talked about, and it's nurturing good character, and it's the primary training ground for all relationships. This is where we can try it out and test it out and make mistakes, right? As a child is growing up, no one, expects to be right from the word go, and children are developing and growing and learning about relating to others. And, children go through these various phases, as we know. Certain stage, everything's about fairness, right? That's not fair, right? She's got the same as me, the same size bit of cake, but I'm older, right? It's not fair. Well, you have to learn, actually, well, what about the happiness of your elder sister? How wonderful, She can have a big bit of cake, right? You're learning. All these simple opportunities are ways to learn about love. And in relating to brothers and sisters in a family environment, it's a kind of shortcut to learning, what we're going to need in the future when we're in a society which is full of people who should be just like our brothers and sisters, actually, right? So, and we learn to relate to elders as well, grandparents, if we have those in the family. I know not everybody has this. Not everybody has a wife or husband. Not everybody has these kind of things. So again, I'm talking very in ideal terms. But if we don't have that in our life, we need to appreciate the value that gives and find that value somewhere else, right? You can adopt a grandmother, right? If you don't have one, right? And say, treat her that way, with the kind of respect you would if it were your own grandmother. So it's all about developing a heart. It's not about, we all have to be the same. Therefore, this is why I'm talking about ideals and not about a specific reality that somebody's experiencing. But this way, the family becomes a school of morality. It's the basis for the norms in society that we're going to meet and for proper conduct in the world. Also, we learn true love as a husband and wife in that relationship, which should be always growing and learning, seeing God in the other and loving the other as with concern to bring about their happiness. And then the couple is the image of the Creator, really, living for each other and the family and the wider world. So they're a model of true love to their children. These are the topics of whole kind of seminars which we provide in other areas of unification movement for families and for individuals who are preparing for marriage. But the family then is not just an end in itself. It's there to contribute to something in society. Therefore, a strong family has a focus that is higher than itself. And if children can learn that from the parents as well, that's very important. It means, our family isn't just there to make itself comfortable or successful, but we're here to contribute something to the wider community. So in this situation we're talking about here, we have 4 great loves. Father Moon called these the 4 great realms of heart, which is a lovely expression, isn't it? Eh? The 4 great realms of heart. The realm of child's love, siblings' love, spouse's love, parents' love. The kind of shortcut to entering and developing these aspects of love, which are going to be useful throughout life, are in a family that works well together, right? That's why it's important, and why this approach would say the family is not just a kind of social construct that you can accept or reject. It's something much more fundamental. You could say the only institution created by God, right? It's something very, very basic. We neglect it at our peril. If we think we can just get rid of it and replace it with something, no, you won't do that, because it's not coming from the minds of people, what we're talking about, right? This is very deep in life itself and the purpose of life itself. And it's to do with this principle of living for others. In Judeo-Christian or Christian tradition, we have whoever seeks to gain his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life will preserve it. This is a kind of view which is a little bit cryptic words of Jesus, actually, where he's saying, yes, if you cling on to your life as you value it in a selfish way, in the end you're going to lose it. What are you hanging on to? But if you give it freely to others and for their happiness, actually you gain in the end. Something comes back to you. In the Holy Quran it says, do not expect in giving any increase for yourself, which is the same kind of universal message, isn't it? Or, if you're from a Hindu background, in the Bhagavad Gita, of sacrifices, the sacrifice performed by those who desire no reward is the nature of goodness. That's the nature of goodness. Or in the Adi Granth of Sikhism, what is that love which is based on greed? When there is greed, the love is false. I'll talk about false love after the lunch break. I don't want to spoil your lunch. Right? So put together, also we have this third foundation of peace, I'll mention very briefly, which is universal peace between people and the natural world, the whole environment, and our responsibility towards that, including technology and scientific development. Again, centering on a common higher purpose, we can have dominion of love over the environment around us, and that should produce, as we said, this mutual prosperity, material prosperity for all, science and technology where the benefits are shared for human benefit, and to develop a right and lasting relationship with the natural world. So this we need to develop, and we can see it in different ways as well, whether it's taking care of the environment through artistic pursuits as well, which is part of this, and looking after the resources which we have and thinking about the future, and also mastering and developing technology for the benefit of humankind. So this is, we say, a third foundation of peace. Again, with a biblical quotation, it comes from St. Paul. 2,000 years ago, this person was writing, "The creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons," and we might add daughters, "of God." Right? That means, even creation is suffering, nature's suffering, because people aren't really revealing true characteristics yet, right? Our potential as human beings. We're not exercising that. So put together, we have these three foundations, right? Individual peace, peace in family and society as a consequence. Coming out of that, it's the kind of unit which gets multiplied into society. And then we have universal peace in our environment. This has very distinct echoes. If you come from a tradition which is associated with the book, religions of the book, then we talk about three great blessings, right? In Genesis, it mentions, be fruitful and multiply and have dominion over the earth. Yes, this is like an unpacking of those simple words, right? We've been through this journey this morning to look at it in this way. Under this scheme, I would say everything that you want for your happiness is there, and there's nothing you want for your happiness which is not there. It's all contained in that. So I don't think of this as religious doctrine. It's much more fundamental than that. It's talking about life itself, right? This is what life is about. You know, how many people do you come across, especially young people, who are saying, I don't know what life is all about. What's the meaning of life? You know, and even they start to doubt the value of life. And, you know, it's very sad to hear that, actually. But, you know, if you could understand it this way, you'd realize, yes, and I have to, you know, fit in with this. Actually, my happiness is to be found by embracing this and understanding this, and then going with it and not trying to oppose it or find something different or separate myself from society. No, this is it. So be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion. That is the beautiful kind of conclusion of this look at universal values, incorporating some fundamental ideas that I'm taking from Father Moon's theology. We could say unification theology or unification philosophy, unificationism. And I hope that was of some benefit to some of you at least. Thank you so much. God bless you. Good.
David, thank you
Very much, Robert.
So I love this presentation. It really shows the ideal. We'd like to break out into smaller groups. That requires a little bit of moving of chairs. What I'm going to suggest, some of you could go downstairs to where the sofas are. You have the added thing, you could be first in the line for lunch because you're closest. But one group, what I would suggest is maybe from the back few rows, particularly maybe on this side and maybe a few other people, maybe Nellie and you can join. Could go downstairs to the sofas downstairs, sorry?
Behind me, behind this row?
I think it's a few too many.
That's too many.
I was thinking like three groups in here. So the front here, the front there, and then one group in front of the AV desk, and then one group on the sofas downstairs. If you have four groups, actually it's too noisy. We have experience.
But you have to count the groups. It depends on the numbers of the groups.
Right. So we'd like to be in groups of about 8 or 10 people. 10 is too much? So maybe the first group here, the first 3 rows, then the group back there, the back 4 rows from that side, and Ellie maybe downstairs. Yep. And then this group, the back few rows of that group can go there. If it gets too many, actually a few people can take their chairs and go out with the sofa just outside as well. So maybe front row, if you can just turn around.